And this is my 2-week notice. This story occurred about a year ago, but requires some background. This might be a little long. I worked at a local golf course for about 7 years, from when I was 13 to 20. When I had first started there, my mother was the manager of all things food and beverage until that summer because she took on a different job. Working there for so long put me in line to be the new manager. However, I was not willing to take the position because I was enrolled in college and wouldn't have the time for it. And considering my mother worked 100-hour-plus weeks sometimes in her busy season, I wasn't willing. So they brought an auntie to replace my mother as food and beverage manager, and I was another regular employee. The golf course also has a general manager who we will call Chad. Chad sucks. He was creepy towards all the girls that worked there and had a terrible temper. One similar to a toddler. We never saw eye to eye on anything, especially his management style, and was always getting on my case, even though I was the only person on the food and beverage side of things that knew what was up and how to do anything, including Addie. So this brings us to the story. I was working in our little restaurant serving our golf leagues that come in. One league in particular liked to stay really late, like 12 a.m. to 1 a.m., but I never really minded as I got along well with them, and I became good friends with a lot of the members. And they were always buying beer and shots, so there was never much of an issue with it. When Addie started there, Chad decided to change up our dining room policies to close the restaurant at 10:30 p.m. This personally really aggravated me. They were paying customers, and I was happy to serve them, and I was the only one that was usually serving them. But Chad kept going on about labor costs, which if anyone reading this knows anything about serving, I wasn't making much hourly and was relying on tips to make money. So they put this into place, and I tell Chad it's his responsibility to tell the league they have to leave at 10:30 and not me. He didn't. And guess what? The league members were pissed. First mistake. Addie would not often, or honestly never, stay to help with the leagues, but was adamant about the new hours. As she is about to head out for the day, she tells me that I will be training 2 girls in the restaurant that night. We have about 80 extremely needy golfers in the restaurant at once on this night in particular. I barely had time to train one, but she did not stay to help out with that. Looking back on it, it was definitely not my responsibility to train anyone, either. But I was willing to help out as she was still getting adjusted to the job, and she knew that and took advantage of that. Second mistake. Then mentions to me that if I am not clocked out by 10:50 p.m., then I will not be paid for any work after the fact. Third mistake. I ended up training one of the girls on her Pose computer and told her she was done for the day and that she can clock out, and continued to train the other girl for the rest of the evening. So when the leagues left at 10:30, there was food on the floor, bathrooms weren't cleaned, trash was not taken out, the tables were moved from their normal resting place, and the drawer wasn't counted. I told the girl I was training to move the tables, and I counted the drawer. Well, it's 10:50 now and I'm not working for free. So we clocked out and left. Could I have done more? Absolutely, but I needed to prove a point. The next morning I had many missed calls from Chad and Addie. I didn't have to come in for 2 days, so I just let them keep calling. So on the next shift day I finally called Chad back. He told me to come in for a meeting with him and Addie. When I get there, he gives me a story about how he had to come in and clean everything up with Addie, and why would I ever do something like that? I told him that Addie not only had me training 2 people on our busiest night of the week, alone, but I also had to be out at 10:50 or I was told I wasn't being paid. After going back and forth about how Addie was just kidding and I shouldn't take things so seriously, I had finally had enough of Chad and his antics. I told them I was putting in my 2 weeks, and the looks on their faces were as if I had shot someone right in front of them. It was awesome. I continued to work for the next 2 weeks, doing everything I was supposed to, and training Addie on any little detail I could think of before I left. After my 2 weeks was up, I ended up getting calls from Addie and Chad all the time because nothing was going right. I was asked again by Chad to take Addie's position on, and Addie was calling me telling me how impossible Chad is to work with. It was truly beautiful to watch all the chaos unfold even after I left. Addie ended up quitting a month after because her and Chad couldn't get along. I don't miss much about that job or place, but I do miss my regulars every day. If any of you are reading this, I hope you're doing well.
So what do you think about this episode of Totally Reddit? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, subscribe, follow, and check out another one of our Totally Reddit stories.